Hello, welcome to Uncommon Leadership. I'm Michael Hunter with Uncommon Teams. Today I'm talking with Gerardo Segat. Gerardo is an international leadership coach whose purpose and legacy is to humanize leadership. Following a wealth of experiences as entrepreneur, chairman, and chief executive officer, Gerardo has used his leadership background to create Preludes, a coaching program created to humanize leaders, organizations, and their stakeholders through creative and powerful original experiences, such as decision-making debates, client interaction models, and emotions-focused team meetings. Currently, Gerardo is working on Out as Humans, a performing arts show designed to humanize authentic leaders. Out as Humans is an individual and group immersive performance that creates a space for leaders to be open, trusting, empathetic, and feel a sense of belonging. Welcome, Gerardo.
Well, thank you, Michael.
In your journey to seeing people as people and learning to leverage their unique gifts to best accomplish your goals, when did you first recognize this might be a valuable approach?
It must have been about 15 years ago. I was the founder and CEO of a multi-family office organization. And I was actually meeting a friend of a friend. And in the company, we were recruiting an asset manager. And I just met this guy. He was a journalist. And after I met with him, I was coming back home and I thought, oh, this would be the perfect guy as an asset manager. So we actually ended up recruiting him, a journalist, for an asset manager position. And he became one of the best resources in the group.
What was it about your conversation with this person that shifted your perspective from, oh, he's just a journalist to, oh, yes, he's a journalist and he would be a great asset manager. We need him on our team.
Well, probably, so I didn't know he was a journalist actually. So maybe, just starting with a blank page, uh, somehow allowed me to think, okay, this could be a great person for that position. So maybe just, the absence of any kind of influence that somehow labels the person.
So in this case, you happen to have the perfect absence of information that lets you get into that openness to possibilities. How can we achieve that openness when we don't start out with that blank page?
Well, I think we just have to. Actually, following that episode, I started having recruiting interviews, um, you know, without having a look at the CV. Somebody asked, the head of HR was looking at the CV proposing, and um, it is just a way, everybody can find his own way. My way was to look at the CV and go straight into the interview and have a conversation with the person. So it's something that you actually decide to do or not to do.
Consciously deciding to set aside everything we think we know and allowing ourselves to discover what actually is there.
Yeah, just assume you don't know. It's probably the best.
Because we probably don't.
Because we probably don't, but also because I think the key is really to understand what the magic within that person or any person is, you know.
How do you
And
find that magic?
um, I think you find that magic when you have a conversation where um, you allow the person to be to be fully connected with his or her own human being. So when you have a human conversation with a person, then you have a chance to understand where the magic of that person lies.
How do you initiate that humanness in the conversation?
Um, well, I guess from the questions somehow that you ask the person. So if uh, you know talk about, let's say, vulnerability, and you lead the conversation by example. So I think that's very, very important. In any scenario in a company or even in a recruiting interview, if you show yourself human, the other person will show human. So leading by example is very, very important because from my perspective and my experience, people are just looking forward to find themselves into safe situations, safe scenarios where they can be themselves. A company, a group, a work position, a recruiting interview, anywhere.
Work, especially, often doesn't feel like a safe place to do this. How do you help groups, executives, boards turn that from it feeling from a this is not, no way am I going to be open and vulnerable here to, okay, I'm actually safe to be open and vulnerable with these people I see every day?
I think they need to somehow taste it, experience it. And again, that's done through example, either management in the company or an event, a speaker. Um, One of the things I do, one of the experiences of Prelude is a speech given to board of directors about vulnerability, and every time is an incredible and amazing human experience. People share the most intimate fragilities just after half an hour of their meeting. They come in the meeting, they don't even say hello, and just after half an hour, they're crying, hugging each other, and so is just give the chance to the people and make them taste, and then I think they will realize the way they feel. Um, and if they are able to choose to go that way, they'll also realize what's the impact on their performance.
And what impact on performance do you see after you give this amazing half-hour speech? The board is all hugging and celebrating each other, and then you leave the room, they go back to their jobs. How do you get them to help them sustain that connection?
Well, that's the company decision in doing that. But if the culture, if the company decides that the culture places human connection at the center, then it's a recurring solicitation that people get to open up, to openness, to psychological safety, to cohesion, to sense of belonging, to all of that. Okay, so that's, I think, is the way, and then gradually they get to see the effects on their performance, because from my experience, leaders who are deeply authentic and who are connected with themselves, with their own human being, and with other human beings, they have that connection has a radical effect on their performance and on their behavior. I would say, mainly radical positivity, radical humanity, and radical clarity. Leaders who are deeply connected always look at the bright side of things, of events, of anything happening, even the worst thing, the most negative thing. They have strong human skills, what we call soft skills. I call them human skills. So, empathy, gratitude, servancy, all of that. And they have an amazing clarity. And because of that clarity, they are able to create magical spaces, such as, able to identify win-win situations, win-win solutions, or impossible to possible scenarios.
If I, as a leader in my organization, start to see the effects of this and I want to amplify those effects and that effectiveness, what's a good way for me to help that continue to grow?
It is by looking every single, detailed process in the company and think, how do I make it human? How do I make, for example, reporting to board of directors human? How do I make every single process in the company? How do I make a meeting human? So it's really to ask yourself, how do I make it human?
Whatever that humanity means to me.
Well, I mean, it means creating a scenario whereby people don't need to wear masks. Okay, so people can be themselves.
Mm-hmm. That can be pretty scary to take off the mask that we've worn for maybe our entire career. How can I, as a leader, help my team and myself feel a little more comfortable taking those masks off for even just like this particular meeting?
I think that, well, first of all, let me tell you one thing. I think deep authenticity and human connection are contagious and available, accessible, more than what you can think. Okay? Because the key is creating that safe space. And you do that leading by example. So if you are vulnerable, if you are human, if you are connected, then people, gradually, everyone with at his own speed, will more and more be vulnerable, be human, be authentic. And just you have to keep on doing that. Okay. One of the effective ways that I've seen doing it is by having regular meetings where, team meetings where people of the team just, share updates about some of the key areas in the business and personal, and where they don't simply share events, but they actually share the emotional impact of that event. It can be negative or positive, So if people start talking emotions, which is our original language, then gradually, more and more, they will open up and they will be more authentic and they will be more vulnerable.
Yes. The leader, I can model this by one of the people on the team talks about something that happened, and then I can say, "Well, thank you, team person. I'm super excited to hear this because and the impact that has on me." And just continuing doing this for each person as they go around and everything that someone brings up. I can vocalize the impact that's had on me. And that helps everyone see then that talking about emotions, bringing up the impact that the experiences are having on them is safe as well.
Yeah, that's I think one of the I'd say most important rule, especially when you are starting um, something like this in a company, and it is to have a non-judgmental approach, So instead of giving advice, instead of judging whatever is coming out from the other person, it's always suggested and important that people maybe share their similar experience or share whatever the person shared, really is triggered in terms of, something they remember or a similar experience they've shared. That's a very important um, approach, especially at the beginning, whilst people are getting used to be more human and share more emotions.
When people on the team are not so excited about experiencing emotions, like is the case with many of the people in software I work with, you tell me, I went into software so I don't have to deal with emotions, Michael. How can we mitigate the impact of sharing our emotions with a team on them so that they can feel safe enough to stay present there in the meeting, even though I'm bringing up these emotions that they may not be so comfortable hearing about?
Well, it's interesting this. There isn't really, the best approach. So it really depends on the people, on yourself and on the people you have around. Obviously, having that care and have that sensibility to understand, which direction and how far you can go is important. I think that what I've seen working quite effectively is that before actually doing that, you um, you say what you're going to do, okay, and what's the purpose of this, and what is the reason of that, okay, what we are trying to achieve, and you say that whatever you do might actually impact in that way, okay, so you just pre-inform the person that you're going to do it, what is the reason, and that what you're trying to achieve and what eventually might have as a negative impact on them. And that is often a way for this not to happen. Okay, then once you do it, because you have actually informed the people, then people, consider this. They say, okay, here is a guy who cares about me, and so I'm going to give you something. And you'll see that step by step, then you get a little bit, people will open a little bit and more and more and more and more.
I like that a lot. It We're kind of sneaking in, hey, I'm about to impact you emotionally by telling them that we're going to impact them emotionally, which in itself is going to impact them emotionally. And so we give them a taste of what's to come by telling them what's to come. And that opens them up, it maybe just the tiniest bit, which then helps the bigger thing about to come to land a little more softly.
Yeah, it's a kind of technique that comes from the coaching practice. In coaching, often when you have a client and you need to challenge that client, well, it is common practice. This is what they advise you to do: is say it to them before that you're going to be hard on them, and so when you actually hard on them, it's okay. So you take that into vulnerability. It's exactly the same thing. Somehow, you know, whatever mechanism is a defense. Okay, if you pre-warn the person, there is no reason to have defense that high. You still have defense, but you know it. So people low down with the defense, and therefore allow more to come.
Yeah, that's a great tool. Thank you, Gerardo.
You're welcome.
We started our conversation today with when you first recognized that seeing people as people and learning to leverage the unique gifts to best accomplish your goals might be a valuable approach. Do you have a story of some time recent that has reinforced that, oh, yeah, this is really the best way forward?
Well, yes, I actually, because I decided to start this new project about the show. I exposed myself into a completely new scenario, new industry, new way of thinking, of doing, which is the theater. Okay, and somehow theater is very different from business. Okay, business tends to close, theater tends to open. Okay, and so I've been working with to put together a team, to work on this project. So, an acting coach, a producer, a script writer, actors, dancers, musicians, people from different kind of arts, artistic people. And for me, it was completely new, and trying to understand and trying to somehow lead that team to produce, to make the show was again something, if you want, something completely new. So starting from zero. So we are used to maybe recognize business skills, and here is the business skills are not relevant. Other skills are relevant. So really, going into a new field has really reinforced this to me. To say that the magic, the talents that people have are not necessarily only business. They can be artistic or something completely different.
Now I have this vision of you leading a troupe of 20, 50, all these different artistic type people with dragging along lights and microphones and all this other stuff, showing up at the top floor outside the CEO's office, the board of directors conference room, and the assistant or whoever's meeting you not knowing, being totally flabbergasted of here you are for a serious business meeting with 50 people who are laughing and joking and maybe don't look like the executives all are used to each other looking like. Is that what it's like? Or how does it work when you bring the show into a company or a board of directors?
I mean, so the show, it depends. Sometimes it is an external location, sometimes it is in the office in one of the rooms. Huh? So the whole team and the whole scenography, we build it up in a way that it's movable, it's easy, it's flexible. And it's unbelievable. I tell you, there are so many aspects in a show, the sound, the visual, the light, the script, the scene, and adapt to, it's a continuous uncertainty. If you if you're really struggling with uncertainty, that's the best, because you go there, you don't know, you have to adapt this, you adapt the script, you adapt the sound. It's a continuous adaptation. And in a world where if you think, um, in a world that is incredibly human connected, artistic world, there's an incredible human connection. I may think I am connected, but when I actually approach this project, I see people, for them, what I thought was my most intimate fragility, for them is nothing, and I went beyond that. It's amazing. It's an amazing thing. And the response from the companies, somehow, because it is a performing arts show, again, it is something people are ready when they go and watch a show. Somehow it takes the defense, down low, because it's art, and therefore art, they're ready to challenge themselves, to give themselves, to open up, and not to have defense. So when I decided to do that, I wanted to do something like that instead of, giving a speech, or instead of writing a book, or instead, it really, it widens, it opens up the people. Art opens up the people.
Art opens up the heart.
Yes, you may say so. Or opens up and brings up the art of people.
If I like to bring this into my organization, how do I get started?
Well, you can contact me. I'm on LinkedIn. So it's linkedin.com/in/Gerardo Segat, or you can visit my website, gerardosegat.com. And there's a post section about Autism Humans. You have possibility to connect by email. You can write me an email.
Great. Thank you. I'll have those links in the show notes. What else should I ask you today, Gerardo?
Well, you may ask me one piece of advice to any leader listening to your podcast, or you may ask me what's the leadership skill, most important leadership skill of the future, in my opinion, in my humble opinion.
Let's combine those together and say, what advice would you give to a leader who's wants to best set themselves up to continue leading uncommonly in the next 10, 20 years?
Okay, I'm going to kind of combine the answer. I would recommend any leader to go on a inner journey. So to develop and train self-awareness. So I actually think that awareness, not only self, it can be naturally awareness in general, nature of your body, of somebody else, of yourself. Okay, awareness, I think, is the leadership skill of the future, especially because of AI. And so going on an inner journey and find the four treasures of a leader, the four inner treasures of a leader, which are meaning in what you do in your life, love, freedom, and certainty.
Thank you. You may have just answered this. What would you like to leave our audience with today?
Well, I think what I would like to leave is an experience. So in my show, there is a moment where we talk about soul. And, so what I would like to do is a little experience, if you allow me, for a couple of minutes. So, just stop doing whatever you're doing. If you're running, if you are, reading, cooking, whatever you're doing, stop for a second. If you need to pause me, just pause and then you play it again. And I want you to experience what I call connection with your inner human being instead of giving you a definition. So just close your eyes for a moment and imagine your soul takes flight and it flies in the air, free. It goes wherever you want. It flies. It's flying. Where does it land?
And when your soul takes flight, Gerardo, where does it land?
It lands on the top of a mountain with a lot of snow. That's because I love helicopter skiing.
Nice. Thank you for that
You're welcome.
lovely experience. Audience, thank you for joining Gerardo and me today. And please let us know, where does your soul land when it takes flight? We'd love to hear. Thank you and have a great day. Thanks for joining us on Uncommon Leadership today. If you found these stories interesting, inspiring, and illuminating, sign up for my newsletter. Hop over to uncommonteams.com and use the form at the top of every page. You'll be the first to know about every new episode of Uncommon Leadership. You'll also discover how you can build uncommon teams. If you'd like to chat about doing that yourself, email me, michael@uncommonteams.com, or use the contact form on my website. Thanks so much.